Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to Farmview. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme, and once again I have a very busy show for you this week. Well, in this week's programme I'll talk to recently retired Teagasc farm advisor Brian Hillard about his 40 years experience as an ag advisor in Waterford. We'll also hear from Julie Power of Seedtech in Waterford about her recently launched Blooming Native Wildflower Seeds, a great initiative indeed. And plus I'll preview next week's dairy webinar on milk recording.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, recently well-known Teagasc advisor Brian Hillard retired after 40 years. A Kerryman who came to Waterford back in the 80s, retired just recently. So earlier this week I went along to catch up with Brian and to look back at his 40 years experience in Waterford. First of all, Brian, congratulations. 40 years a long time, but can you remember coming to Waterford back in the early 80s?
I can indeed, Kieran, and I must say the 40 years seem to have gone by very quickly. I first started, I suppose, with Acot at the time in Offaly in 1981. And it was a good year to be there because they won the McCarthy Cup that year, and a good friend of mine, Joe Coughlin, was on that team. So then in January 82 I was transferred to Lismore office. At that time there were 3 offices in the county: Lismore, Dungarvan and Waterford, and I was there for 2 years.
2 questions. First of all, who was CEO back then, and secondly, was it mainly mixed farming you were involved with?
The CEO at the time was George Frost, and I worked under George there for a number of years. That time farming was very mixed. You had cows, cattle, sheep, tillage, so very mixed. And after George Frost, I suppose the other managers I worked with were Jerry Kingston, Bill Costello, and I worked the longest with John Maloney, local man, and then at present we have Siobhan Cavan.
You mentioned before we came on air about one of your first big events was a farm walk in West Waterford. I think it was out at Shamey Hannon's farm in Ballyduff.
That's right. My very first farm meeting was with Shamey Hannon, and I remember being very nervous ahead, but Shamey was a lovely man, and we had a good farm walk. I remember Conley was there from Waterford Foods at the time also.
The changes you've seen have been huge, Brian. They
have. The changes have no doubt that over 40 years there are going to be a lot of changes, but the big change I suppose has been the improvement in farming and in yields and how cows are now producing more. Now we're talking about kilos of mixed sauce per cow rather than volume. The big improvement in increased production has been the big improvement in grass quality and managing grass, and also cow type and breeding.
Now, Brian, you're a man who travelled all over the world. Indeed, we talked early on about educational tours, but really grassland managers, that was a big change. I remember one of your first big open days as such, farm walks out in Michael Walls and Colligan back in the early 90s with Pat Dillon of Moorpark.
Yeah, Pat was a young researcher at the time, and Michael Walls was a great man to take on new ideas. So that was my first walk ever having on how to measure grass and how to estimate the quantity of grass in a field and on the right type of grass to be grazing.
And of course you got farmers to buy into that, and that was key. The other big changes you've seen?
I'd say that the huge, I suppose, change has been the increase in specialisation in dairy farming. I mean, you've gone from mixed farming up to present day where you have cows and heifers replacements only, or in some cases just cows only, where heifers are contract bred.
You were a big believer, Brian, in discussion groups and farm walks and farmer learning from farmer.
Yeah, look, sure, every advisor now has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 maybe discussion groups. That has been a huge, a big change. We've at least half our majority of our clients now in discussion groups, and that has been a big improvement, made big improvements on farms. I suppose, Kieran, one of the biggest changes I've seen over the years since I came was the introduction of milk quotas in 1984. I mean, for 30 years or more I've been working with through milk quotas in those years.
With the handbrake on as such? The
handbrake on, like fighting with one hand tied behind your back. But in 2015, thankfully, quotas are abolished and the shackles are taken off as regards milk production.
Brian, you're also a big driver in quality, farm safety and indeed the environment as well, and indeed they're still key planks now, but back 20-30 years ago you saw the importance of those 3 key areas.
Yeah, I suppose in 1989, Kieran, the late John O'Brien and myself, we organised a 6-night course towards the end of the year in 89, where we covered the course is entitled Milk Quality and the Environment for the 90s. So the environment was always up there over the decades, but in that course, we identified the areas to look at for the next decade in the 90s. One of them was milk quality. New SEC levels are coming in, so we covered that, and we covered, facilities on farms, pollution and so on. Yeah.
Some of the highlights when you look back, of course, you were a big driver, and we mentioned grassland management, the whole area of maize, breeding and now once a day. Would that be a highlight when you look back at it?
I suppose the number of highlights over the years, Kieran. I suppose before the highlights, there's also another big change in over the number of years, and that was the introduction of Area 8 back in 1993. And we've gone from farms identifying the land in 25-inch maps now to satellite imagery. I suppose things that are highlights maybe over the years. I suppose as regards quotas to in 1984, my first year in Dungarvan, we had a visit from the European MEPs and Irish MEPs, and I was asked to identify a farm that would be badly affected by introduction of quotas. So I got to Eamon Hickey above Modeligo. The farm MEPs went there, and Irish MEPs at the time were Ray McSherry, Mark Clinton, and our own Agriculture Minister Austin Deasy.
So you had a real top VIP visit to Westford, because highlighting a young farmer stymied to progress like Eamon. Yeah,
there were MEPs all over different countries in Europe. The only MEP that didn't turn up was Ian Paisley at the time, but he didn't travel south. But after that meeting, we went to the Whitechurch House Hotel, where we had a follow-up meeting afterwards. So look, there's been a number of highlights, and I suppose the whole area I was interested in too was the whole area of breeding, and because we need to improve the cows' fertility apart from yield. So look, crossbreeding was part of that. I was very involved in crossbreeding, and in 2003 I was lucky enough to get a travel bursary to California where they were starting to crossbreed extreme Holstein cows, and I got that from the Irish Farming Independent and Teagasc, and Mairead McGuinness was involved in that at the time, so I knew Mairead in UCD. So
innovations you've seen, and also one area that you were very strong in was educational tours, not only bringing groups of farmers, not only around Ireland, around UK, Europe, and indeed the rest of the world, and I would consider that really a game changer for farming in the region.
Yeah, look, I think the one good thing about travelling is that you can see, you learn from other people and other farmers, researchers, advisors. But I think Waterford farmers can be proud of themselves in that they're among the top milk producers in the world. I'm just talking about dairy farmers, Kieran, that was my job was mostly with dairy farmers. But I think we're every bit up there with New Zealand, maybe beyond them and ahead of them in some levels at this stage. So it's always good to go and see and travel. I think farmers, we used to have trips around the country, in the country, and also we started tours abroad, and there were always tours abroad before I came even. But it's important that farmers, they work hard. It's important they take time off as well.
Of course, you'd always a very good crew of advisors. We were very fortunate in Waterford, and indeed the backup and admin in the region was really fantastic.
Yeah, look, I suppose in fairness, I think Teagasc is a great organisation. We came together there from ACOT. They brought the research side in, the advisory and education all under one umbrella, and we've got very good backup. And as an advisor, we've got very good backup. And I'd like to say too, in our own case in Waterford, for most of the years, we had a very good team and still have a very good team of advisors. And I'd like to thank them for working with them over the years. And now we're with Kilkenny as well. And when I met Kieran, I'd like to thank, we had a great admin staff as well. They were the hub of the office, and we got through a lot of work together. We worked as a team.
Excellent teamwork. And of course, you mentioned earlier about Siobhan Kavanagh being the regional manager now for the area. Women have become such a powerful part of the farming agri industry. I'm sure you've seen that over the decades.
I've seen that essential. I've a good share of clients at the moment that are women farmers. It's you go back 40 years ago, very few women would be farming, but that has changed.
Brian, you're always great to embrace change, or indeed challenge change, and you're a pioneer and a risk taker. I remember the big maize farm walk in the early 90s. We mentioned the breeding and of course the whole area of once a day milking, so you embraced all those.
I did. Look, I suppose when going to listen to different people and going to different conferences and all that, I saw openings there. The maize, I suppose, was a big one, because there was a Gordon Newman who was with Keenan's at the time in that course, and we had in 1989. I said that new varieties of maize had come in, and so look, I said the only way to find out can we grow maize or not was to try to ask farmers to do it, and a number of farmers grew it in 1991, and it was a very good year. There was a great crops.
Now once a day also, I myself included, a lot of people questioned it as regards herd health, about milk quality and would it work. You're a firm believer to really give it a try, and you really believed it could work, and my God, has it worked. We spoke to John Moore on last week's programme, and really it's been a difficult few years transition, but overall it has worked.
It is working, Kieran, no doubt. And look, we saw it. I remember bringing a group to France years back, and also we saw it. We went to see it in New Zealand as well. Farms are milking once a day. It's growing. The number of people taking on once a day is growing, and I think a lot of the reason is, workload on some farms, and there's workload, there's lifestyle. There are part-time farmers as well who have a job off farm. So there's a number of reasons why people are milking once a day.
Brian, looking back at the 40 years, you must get great satisfaction. As we mentioned, you brought tours all over the globe. But the quality of farming, particularly dairy farming in this area, in County Waterford, is as good as you get not alone in Ireland and Europe, but indeed globally, both from grassland management, herd management, indeed breeding and feeding.
It is. I think the standard here at Kieran in Waterford, it's probably one of the top, if not the top county in producing milk. So there's some excellent farmers here. I'd say they're on par with anything we see in New Zealand at this stage. And I think one thing maybe I didn't mention there was the introduction of monitor farmers over the years. I mean, they've been a great help in adopting new technology and so on. But you getting weekly reports on those farms, and that's a big plus.
And Brian, you're always a big believer in farmers learning from farmer, and that's definitely, you're very much at the forefront, and that has continued. So Brian, once again, on behalf of everyone in County Waterford, I want to thank you for your 40 years, a huge contribution to the farming and agri industry in Waterford, and indeed well done to you, and best of luck to you in the future, to your wife and your family.
Yes, Kieran, look, I'd like to thank my own wife and family, Marion. They were very accommodating to me out through all my years at work, and I suppose what I have the chance to, thank you for asking me on the programme. I think you actually yourself, Kieran, have given a great service to farmers over the years in your programme.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah. Well, Brian, listen, best of luck to you, your wife and your family. 40 years, a great contribution to Waterford agriculture. Enjoy your retirement, and indeed thanks for talking to us, Brian Hillard.
Thank you very much, Kieran.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, next week, the Teagasc in the region of Waterford-Kilkenny will hold a very important dairy webinar. It takes place on Wednesday next at 11 o'clock. It's entitled Milk Recording, Knowledge is Power. Tell us all about it as one of the organisers of the event and milk advisor in the East Waterford area, John Maguire of Teagasc. John, welcome to our programme.
Hello, Kieran. Thanks for having me on.
John, milk recording, knowledge is power. Really, that says it all. It's a huge, important tool that farmers should be using. Are you finding that a lot of guys that you'd prefer to have more using milk recording, or is it the fact that more guys aren't getting all the benefits from it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, Kieran, I suppose. Like, if you look at the statistics, less than 40% of Irish herds are currently milk recording, compared to maybe in New Zealand where it's 75% of herds, and even in Denmark, which is 90% of herds, strong dairy producing countries. But I suppose the idea of this webinar is to aim at two types of people. Number one, the people who aren't milk recording, is to kind of outline the benefits and why you should look at starting in 2021. And for the people who are already milk recording, we'll be looking at how we can get the most out of the information and reports to speed up the improvement of the herd. As
regards the benefits, you might outline to our listeners, not alone the milk suppliers, but indeed people in general, the benefits of milk recording and why it's such an important tool that guys should be using. Yeah, so there's three main benefits you can kind of summarise it down to, Kieran. The first one is to identify your best performing cows in the herd. So these are the cows that are giving a good volume of milk, good solids of fat and protein, and low somatic cell count. When you identify these cows, you can breed from the best to get the best replacement. Second reason is to identify your worst performing cows. The ones that are kind of passengers in the herd. You obviously don't want to breed from these, and more than likely, if you can cull them all, the better. And then the third main reason is to monitor somatic cell count. So as you all know, somatic cell count can be an issue on farm, and the milk recording reports will give you information such as the recently infected cows, the persistently affected cows, and then your healthy ones, to try and monitor that and keep it on the right side of the figures. And I suppose a problem ongoing, for a lot of farmers, a cow that might appear to be a good milker might deceive you when you actually get the facts from the milk recording, or is that a factor? That's definitely it, Kieran. The cows that are showing clinical signs of mastitis that we can see without recording, those ones are easy to identify and it's fairly obvious. It's really the cows that have subclinical mastitis, where they mightn't appear to have actual visual signs of mastitis, but they could in fact be driving up the herd average and greatly increasing the chance of higher in the somatic cell count, but also spreading it around the herd, Kieran. That's where the big issue is as well. So Wednesday next, it's a webinar. Obviously, all the events are live webinars. Indeed, it's fantastic the way the farmers have bought into this and the big response you're getting from the various events you're holding. So it's a milk recording knowledge is power webinar. And to register and indeed more detail on it, where can people get more detail and how do people get involved with the big event on Wednesday? Exactly, Kieran. And just to emphasise as well, we have two guest speakers in for the webinar. Number one is Tom Murphy, which is a dairy farmer in Portlaw, County Waterford, to give his experience on why he started milk recording last year and how he plans to use it to improve the herd going forward. And secondly, we'll have Stephen Connolly from Progressive Genetics. And Stephen will be there to tell us the why, how and where of milk recording
And for people who are interested, it's on next Wednesday, 17th of February at 11 a.m. It will be advertised in local social media. It will be in the local newspapers, and also there will be a text going out to clients with a link to register. And really, to register on the link beforehand, and if not, even if you go in on the day, you'll be able to register through the link. It'll also be on the Teagasc website, so it should be well documented around.
Well, John, to yourself and Richie O'Brien, who's very much involved, indeed to Siobhan, the area manager, I think it's a great concept. Milk recording is such an important tool for farmers to be using. Milk recording, knowledge is power, I think, says it all. It's on Wednesday next at 11 o'clock as used. For more information, onto the Teagasc website, and ideally pre-register, but even you can register on the day. And I'm delighted to hear there's a farmer involved, because I think farmers love to hear from farmers themselves who've actually used the various tools that we're talking about, particularly when it comes to milk recording. John Maguire, listen, John, well done to you and all involved. Best of luck. It's next Wednesday at 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning. For more information, you can get on the Teagasc website, indeed, for your own Teagasc advisor as well. John Maguire, best of luck on Wednesday, and talk to you in the near future.
Thank you, Kieran. Take care.
Well, Reconnect with Nature with Blooming Native Wildflower Seeds is an initiative from Seedtech in Waterford City. And to tell us all about it, we're joined from Seedtech by one of the Power family, and that's Julie Power. Julie, welcome to our programme.
Hi Kieran, thank you for having me on today.
Julie, obviously blooming native wildflower, there's a huge interest in biodiversity, and I suppose that was the key for you in getting involved in this whole area.
Yeah, so bloomingnative.ie we set up almost a year ago now, so last March, and we relaunched it then last week. So, yeah, it's a bit different than what we've been doing. As people may know, that we've been in arable seeds for the past number of years. Actually, the company has been operating for quite a long time now. My great-great-great-grandfather, William Power, set up his first nursery and seed merchants in 1859. So, I came back to the company, and I'm delighted to be a new and sixth generation to keep it going.
Now, as you mentioned, of course, Power Seed, you're there for generations, part and parcel of the tillage and the whole grass seeds business for generations, as you mentioned. As regards this whole area of biodiversity, was it difficult to get the company to buy into this, or is this a whole thing that you've just driven on yourself?
No, not really, to be honest. It was something that I was really passionate about. I've always been passionate about the environment and biodiversity. It was never the main focus for the company, but they're always looking to move with the times, and biodiversity is becoming more and more important in the world that we live in today. So, no, it wasn't hard at all to get them to buy into it. They were delighted for someone to come along with this passion and to drive it forward.
Exactly, and obviously over the last while, I'm speaking to Malachy Doherty there, the horticulturist with Glanby, talking about the whole area of biodiversity and farmers really buying into it, and obviously there's a lot of need for this whole area to be promoted. But you said before we come on air, you're talking about from the very small pack, from a guy literally with a patio or a small back garden, to farmers getting involved in this. So you're covering all sizes and all areas.
Yeah, that's it. Really, anyone can get involved. Our smallest packets cover an area of 2 metres squared, so whether you have a nice garden border or even just a window pot, you can get involved and provide a habitat for bees. Or if you're a farmer and maybe you can reap from the benefits of the schemes such as the new REST schemes, which we found out the details of this week. So even growing a wildflower margin of the fields would be a really good way to contribute. Now,
the actual mixes involved, obviously there's a variety of mixes, but have you a standard mix, or does it depend where a guy is looking at for butterflies, for bees or whatever, or is there just a standard mix that you have across the board?
Yeah, so we actually have a few different mixes. We kind of kept it simple. We didn't go with too many mixes. We have a few to suit a few different things that people might want to achieve. So we have the butterfly and bee mix, which is an excellent mix for most situations. So anywhere where there's good access to light, that mixture is full of nectar-rich species and will attract butterflies and bees. And then we have some others. So like our shaded area mix is really good for areas with some partial shade, in particular hedgerows. And then we have our flowering lawn mixture, which is actually proving to be really popular for people who are sowing lawns or reseeding their lawns.
So really, you're looking at people.
For more,
you're looking really. Sorry, Julie. Looking people really for less mowing and really, as you mentioned in your press release, raising the blades, really, which is all about.
Yeah. So that's it. Wildflowers are really great. First of all, low maintenance options. So, there's not a huge amount you have to do. The only maintenance really is at the end of the season to cut it back to about 5 centimetres in height to allow the new plants to establish. And then, raising the blade is a campaign which we're going to roll out. So that's just to encourage people to, less mowing, which is going to have a better impact on our environment, and provide more habitat for our pollinators, which are so vital even to our own very existence.
I know what Glanbia did last year, Operation Pollination. They got a fantastic response, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest, not alone from the farming community, but across the board. And of course, then you have the beautiful blooms and of course, helping the butterflies and bees. So it's a win-win scenario, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the significance and importance of wildflowers is the food and habitat they provide for pollinators. But, it's also really important, I suppose, for our own well-being and enjoyment and the aesthetic benefits as well, so we can all really reap the benefits from wildflowers.
Well, Julie, fair play to you. It's a great initiative. Blooming Native, I think it's a fabulous name as well and really says it all. For people who want to find out more and to get more information, as you say, you have packs that are very small packs for 2 metre squares from whatever area you want to cover, you can supply. But for more information, is it best onto your website?
Yeah, so that's it. As I said, we even do up to, we supply by the kilo bags as well, so that's the most suitable and most cost-effective option for farmers in particular. Who wants any further details, you can visit our website. That's bloomingnative.ie. There's actually a section on the website specifically for environmental farming. So any other information, anyone's welcome to message me or contact me via email, which is info@bloomingnative.ie, and I'd be glad to help.
Listen, fantastic there, and well done to you, Julie. You're keeping up a great family tradition. Indeed, it's a great initiative as regards this Blooming Native. Biodiversity is so important for the industry, indeed for everybody in Ireland to get involved in. So well done, great initiative, great seed coming to fruition, and the best of luck with Blooming Native into the future. Julie Power, thanks for taking our call.
Thanks, Kieran.
Well, before I go on the racing front, we had a good week again for local Waterford connections. Cross Channel Dungarvan trainer Dennis Coughley saddled a good winner at Kempton, while Kappa jock Tom Quayle was back in the winner's enclosure at Wolverhampton. While back home, Knockeen Butlerstown trainer Henry de Bramett continued his brilliant run with winners at Down Royal, as well as a huge success at Leopardstown, where his brilliant mare Honeysuckle captured the prestigious Irish Champion Hurdle. Fantastic achievement indeed for Henry and all his team at Knockeen. So that's it for this week's programme. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor's goodbye for now. Once again, my thanks to Ollie and Sean for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So stay safe, keep up the protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.